Now, here's 13 little boxes that I made up along the top here. You're going to see, now you know there's 12 notes. You'll see in a moment why I made 13 boxes. We humans have come up with several different systems over the centuries to assign names to these 12 units in our pitch system. We're going to talk about several of these as we go on, but the only one we're going to talk about for today is the one that you probably know a little bit about already. It's loosely based on the English language. You know, each of the 26 units in the English alphabet has a name, right? And as you know, the first unit in the English alphabet is A. And so it is in the musical alphabet as well. Now, if we can look up over here at this other end, what's the name of this 13th note up here? Remember, there's 12 units, but this is the 13th note. This is also A. That's where it starts over again at that point. You know there's more than 12 keys on a piano. You're going to find out the guitar plays more than 12 notes. Remember, these 12 notes repeat in different octaves. And what do you call this distance between one note that has a particular alphabet letter, like A, and then you jump over the other 11 notes and you land on the 13th note up here that has the same alphabet letter as the one you started on? What is that distance called? That is what is called an octave. You've heard that word before, but you might not have exactly known what it is. An octave is a particular interval, by the way. It's the distance between the first note and the 13th note up there. It's from one A to the next, or from one D to the next higher D than that. That's what we know as an octave. Now, let me ask you this. What's the name of the very next note higher in pitch than A? It's not B, interestingly enough. B is actually right here. There's another note in between A and B, and one way we can see that is by looking up here at the piano keyboard. Here's A on a piano keyboard, and A is always the note that is just to the right of center in the group of 3 black keys. There's the 3 black keys right there, and you'll notice just to the right of center is A right there. Well, here's B right here. But notice in between A and B is one of these black keys. This is one of those sharp and flat notes. Now, do you know what the words sharp and flat mean? A lot of people are confused about this. It's very, very simple. What do the words sharp and flat mean? They're just very old words. They evolved in some other culture. I really don't know where they came from. They don't mean the same things to us that they meant to the culture they originally evolved in. They are simply, I kind of compare them to like port and starboard on a boat. You know, these are old words that sailors use to talk about left and right, you know, port and starboard, you know what I'm talking about? They don't mean the same thing to us anymore. Well, the words sharp and flat are just like that in the musical language. They just tell you what direction to go in. Now, what directions do you go in pitch? Up and down, right? High and low. Up and down. That's all these two words mean. Sharp, which has a symbol like a pound sign, which you've seen before, simply means higher in pitch. That's all it means. A lot of people think it has some magical meaning. It doesn't. Sharp just means higher in pitch. And flat, which has a symbol like a lowercase b, like that, simply means lower in pitch. So, if we can take a look back up here again, here's A in our musical alphabet, and here's B. These were both white keys on the piano. In between there was this black key. In between A and B, there was this black key up there. What's the name of that note? Well, sometimes it's more convenient to think of that as the next note higher than A, so we call it A sharp. But what a lot of people don't understand is in an equal number of contexts, it's more convenient to think of that as the next note lower than B, so we call it B flat. A sharp and B flat are exactly the same note for all intents and purposes. There are some tiny little times that you're going to find out about later on where that's not strictly true, but this is the way you want to look at it for now. A sharp and B flat are two names for the same note. And when do you call it A sharp and when do you call it B flat? I'll tell you about that later on. We don't have time to talk about that right now. For now, it doesn't matter what you call it. Just remember that A sharp and B flat are the same note. Now, it gets even stranger. Here's B, right? What's the name of the next note higher than B? And people go, well, based on that, wouldn't it be like B sharp or C flat? And I go, you would think so, wouldn't you? But interestingly enough, it doesn't work that way. Again, look at the piano keyboard up here. Here's A. Here's A sharp, B flat. Here's B. Look what happens next. There's two white keys in a row. There is no black key in between B and the next note. So interestingly enough, the very next note, higher in pitch than B, is C. There is no sharp and flat note in between B and C. People go, wow, this is weird. I go, well, yeah, a little bit. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to. Some of you have tried to learn about this stuff before and didn't quite see how it works, and you're confused. Hopefully, I'm showing you this in a way that you just won't be confused about it anymore. Another thing to understand is, you know what this means? As musical pitches, A and B are not the same distance apart that B and C are. B and C are only half as far apart as A and B are. Remember, all of the notes in our 12-note pitch system are all the same distance apart from the ones on either side of them. It's an interval, by the way, called a half step. You might have heard of that before. A half step is when you go from one note, say, to the note right next to it. It doesn't matter what color they are on a piano or what they're called. That's always a half step. B and C are only a half step apart in pitch, but A and B are what's called a whole step apart. Half steps and whole steps. These are other examples of intervals, and we're going to be talking about those intervals later on when we study the subject of intervals. Not all of the whole alphabet letter notes in the musical alphabet are the same distance apart, and I have had people that have been confused about that for years. B and C are only half as far apart as A and B are. Now, what's the name of the next note higher than C? Well, here's C on the piano right here. We do have a black key after that. What's the name of that note? Well, it's a little bit higher than C, so we call it C sharp. But it's a little bit lower than D, by the way, which is your next note up there. That's our next white key right there. There's C and there's D. In between is this note. It's got two names. Sometimes it's better to think of it as the next note higher than C. That's C sharp. Other times it's better to think of it as D flat. C sharp and D flat are the same note. Now, what's the next note after that? After D, we have another black key. That, of course, would be D sharp or E flat. Now, after D sharp, E flat, we have another white key. That's E. Remember, this is just going along right in alphabetical order, isn't it? Now it gets interesting again. Here's E on the piano, but look what happens next. There is a second place on the piano where there's no black key in between two white keys. The very next note higher than E is actually F. And remember, all of this stuff is going on your guitar neck, too. I know we're looking at the piano and you want to take guitar lessons, but this is so much more linear. To understand the concepts in music, we best look at it at on the keyboard first. And next week, we're going to be talking about how the guitar actually plays these 12 notes. After F, there is another black key. That would be, of course, F sharp or G flat. Two names for the same note. After that black key, there's another white key. That, of course, would be G. And then finally, we have one more black key right there. The middle black key in the group of three would be G sharp or A flat. And there it is. That's your 12th note right there.
Hi, I'm Scotty West, creator of the Absolutely Understand Guitar Video Home Study Program. Hey, thanks for all the positive feedback on our video guitar lessons. We're now uploading new lessons right from our DVD Home Study Program. Each lesson is 70 minutes long, but we've chopped them up into 10-minute chapters to fit on YouTube, so each lesson will have 7 chapters. It's critical that you watch these chapters in order. Make sure you start with Lesson 1, Chapter 1, then move to Lesson 1, Chapter 2, etc. When you've finished all the chapters for Lesson 1, then move on to Lesson 2. Hey, some of this stuff you might already know, and some of it's a little dry. You're going to wonder, do I really need to know this stuff? The answer is yes. Each one of these chapters contains little gems of information that nobody's told you yet, and these are the missing pieces that are preventing you from seeing the big picture. Don't cheat yourself out of these valuable realizations. Stick with the program. Also, consider our complete DVD home study program. Our high-resolution DVD video is much better than these fuzzy little YouTube clips, and you'll also get all our cool printed material too. So good luck with your music and enjoy the lessons.